have you come up, and if you need a portable mic or speak from this mic or whatever, we can accommodate you. So let's give her a good hand.
Well, I appreciate everybody that's come out today. It's really an honor for me to be able to stand up here and tell you my experience over the years and what I have seen. And I wouldn't take nothing for my journey and what I have seen God do. Not man, but God. And it's very important that we pass down to our generations. We have lost lots, well, probably hundreds of people that we started out with are already gone. And there's not very many of us left that started years ago that can tell you what did go on. We can't, a lot of people can for the last few years, but way back in the early 50s, I know Brother Esther was talking about Brother Eccles. We didn't know he was around until probably, I don't know, about 55. But he was on South Meridian Street. But anyway, we got acquainted with Brother Eccles, and Wayne used to work with him. He was a great man. He was really a good man, and he always made people feel welcome when they come into his church. But I've got a couple of scriptures I want to read first, if I can see them. It's out of Joshua, the 4th chapter, and it's the 5th verse. It says, "And Joshua said unto them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and take you up every man of you a stone upon your shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, and that when your children ask their fathers in time to come." Now, your children don't understand things, but in time they will. And when you're gone, they don't have nobody to ask if you don't tell them. And I know with my mom and dad gone, there's a lot of things that I wished I'd asked them, and I can't now. So you need to ask, if you got questions, you need to ask somebody while they're still around. But anyway, it said, I'm sorry I don't see too well, but for the time to come, saying what means ye by these stones. Other words, what they're asking is what does these stones stand for? And then they can tell their children how that the Lord brought them through Jordan, what God had done, the miracles that He done in the land of when there was 400 years that God wasn't around people in the Old Testament. But when God is around us and we know His power, we need to pass it down. And I'm glad I'm not at a time that there's nothing going on about God. I am blessed, very blessed to know and be around people. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit before I bring in the churches. I think I need to tell you a little bit about our background, my family's background, to bring you up to where we're, when we got acquainted with the church people. We lived off of New York Street, right in behind the old church that Brother Baker started. A lot of you know the church on New York Street. Well, Brother Winchester was a pastor there when I was just a little girl, and Sister Jean McAfresh lived the next street from us. And she would come over. She got acquainted with Mom through Sister Winchester because she lived next door to us. She was the pastor's wife, and it was a different denomination. Anyway, Mom got acquainted with Sister Jean, and so she would come over and talk with Mom and Sister Winchester. So she took me to church, and I think I was about 4 years old when I got saved. And I remember going to Sunday school. At that time, they had little cards that they would give out, and it had a picture on the front, and then it had the Bible story on the back. And I really enjoyed going and getting those little things. And so Sister Jean would always come by and pick me up and take me. We would have walked, because nobody had cars back there. Dad didn't even have a car. You had to take the trolley back then. But Mom and Dad was not saved. And I remember I've always had a deep hunger for God in my soul from the time I remember. And so Sister Jean is really a motherly type to me, spiritually mother, because she's the one that introduced me to Jesus. But anyway, trying to get on with it. I was 5 years old, and then Ernie was born. And before he was born, Dad contacted tuberculosis. And so they quarantined us in. We couldn't go in or out or nothing. So Sister Jean come over and tried to help bring food in for us and things like that. So Dad kept going to the doctor, and they finally told him that they was going to have to collapse his lungs. So they did. And so then Ernie was born, and Sister Jean McAfresh helped Mom with Ernie, and then my sister was born. So the doctor kept telling Dad, said, you got to get out of this city or you're not going to live. He said, you need to get away to where you could get fresh air. So Grandma and Grandpa lived in Ohio on a farm way back. You couldn't even get a car to it. You had to have a Jeep or walk. So Dad went over there and bought the farm, and we moved over there. And Grandma and Grandpa lived with us while we were there most of the time. And so Grandma and Grandpa were saved. And, of course, Mom and Dad wasn't saved at that time. But every now and then, Mom would go in town and go to church with my aunt. She would go to church, to a little small church there in Bethel, Ohio. And so, anyway, we lived over there for a while, and Mom hated it, so Dad had no choice but to sell and come back over here. So he said, okay, Martha. He said, I'm going to let you go over there and buy the house. And so she did. She come over here and bought the house. And so she went back, and then we moved over here on Richland Street. So we was there for a little while, and then we got a letter from my granddad. Now, my granddad was a Christian. He's my hero. Geneva and I have the same grandparents. And Grandpa Carnahan was a special, special, blessed man. And he always listened to the radio, to the ministers, every day. And we didn't have no electricity on the farm. We didn't have no plumbing. But he had a battery-operated radio. And I don't know why, but I'd sit in there with him and listen to them preachers. And I mean, that's not normal for a child to do that. But I just wanted to be with him, and then I enjoyed the preaching. But anyway, he wrote a letter over here, and he said, he called Dad by his name. He said, Bige, he said, there's going to be a preacher in Austin, Indiana, and I want you to go hear him. He said his name is Cash Hamburger. He said he's going to be down there just for one day. And it was a Sunday afternoon. So Dad loved Grandpa enough that he couldn't turn him down. So he thought, well, we'll go, because we had some relatives that lived in Austin at that time. Well, still do. But anyway, we went down there. The church was very small, and we got in there, and the pews were against the wall. And so Dad went first, and I went second, and I had Mom, and then Ernie and Judy. So he preached a message. I don't remember what he preached, but I remember my dad getting up, and I thought, what is he doing? Because Dad was always respectful. And I thought, is he getting up to go out? And when I watched him, and he went to the end of the pew, and he went to the altar. And I thought, my dad's going to the altar? Because Dad was kind of hard. And So he went up there, and the Lord really wonderfully saved him. So he wrote, back then we didn't have no telephones, so he wrote Grandpa. But anyway, then we got to thinking, well, we need to start going to church somewhere, get with some people that's like faith, you know. So Mom remembered Sister Jean, and so she got a hold of Sister Jean some way. And Sister Jean said, yeah, there's some new people we've got in touch with, said, we're having prayer meetings. And she said, it was Brother Brother Baker too, Matt Baker and Lucy, but it was the Allender family. And Sister Vivian is a daughter-in-law of Brother Dutch Allender. So we got together and started going to their prayer meetings, because at that time we didn't know of any churches in the area. And most of us lived on the west side at that time. So we started going to the prayer meetings, and I remember Brother Dutch Allender's mom and dad. They were really precious people. And Brother Matt and Sister Lucy was up here, and so we started small, and it just kind of grew. And of course, back then the houses were real small, but they would just crowd in there, and we'd just get on our knees and pray. We'd go in the bedrooms, or, you know, they just went everywhere to find a place to pray. And God met us in those prayer meetings. And then I remember they started talking about trying to find a church. So there was a VFW building on King Avenue off of Michigan Street. So they went over there and looked at that, and they started, you know, everybody was talking about going over there, you know, maybe to try to buy it. Well, nobody had any money. They wanted $1,600 or $16,000 down. No, $1,600 down. Anyway, so they finally got the money together to put down on the building. So anyway, we went over there. I was probably about, I'd say 11, 12 years old at that time. And we went in there and cleaned that up. It was filthy. It had the theater seats that when you set up, they stood up, you know, with you. But they were so filthy, and I remember all of us kids got involved, and, you know, we just went in there and cleaned them chairs and just got it in order and started having church. And the church grew, and people started coming in, and a lot of the bakers came in, and so one night, Brother Dutch Allender said there was a lot of people that had gotten saved and they needed to be baptized. So he said, we're going to have a baptizing. So at that time, they took them out to some river. I don't know. I can't remember where it was at. But anyway, it was Thanksgiving night. Brother Allender was always a big hunter, so he fixed the meat and everything and had all the people that was involved in the prayer meetings. So we all met over there, and even Brother Leon Baker had come up, and he sang a song after we got through eating, and that's the first time I ever heard him sing Little Graveyard, Bury Me in a Little Graveyard, which I know a lot of you heard him sing it. And so after we ate and had prayer meeting, it was dark and late, so we all went out there to get baptized. There was 14 of us, and Beth Ann's here, not that Beth Ann, but Thelma's daughter, Bolin. Anyway, she was baptized that night, and it was cold, and there was ice all the way around the perimeter of the lake, you know, and I thought I was going to freeze to death out there, but I didn't. None of us got sick. But anyway, that started with the prayer meetings, and then we moved to the VFW and started having church there. And we were loud. We played guitars and cymbals and tambourines, spoons. We didn't have no drums, but they's always calling the police on us. And so a lot of people got saved, and so we stayed there for a while, and it was kind of getting aggravating. You know, the church would be really going high, and all at once these police, they were nice. They said, if you can, kindly calm it down a little bit. Well, when the Spirit of the Lord's moving, you cannot clamp it down. You don't need to. So anyway, I remember one night, Sister Hazel and Brother Louis. Well, I'll tell you this first. Sister Hazel's niece lived close to where we was having church there. And she called her. She said, "Oh, Hazel, you got to come over here." She said, "Them people down there is making a racket, so they are having church." She said, "You need to get down here and go there and see what they're doing." So I remember the night that Sister Hazel and Brother Louis walked in. She had a white, it was really like a nurse's outfit years ago. Probably the younger ones don't know about it, but the nurses used to wear a white dress. And I still can see her walking down that aisle. Anyway, they kind of got acquainted with us and had I don't know, probably a 6 weeks revival. And several people got saved, and they came there for a while, and then they kept calling the police. And so Brother Dutch said, "I'm going to go out toward the country and build a church, so we don't have to put up with this stuff." So he went to West Newton. Well, most of our other people lived in town, and some of them didn't have cars. So they thought, well, we'll just try to find something in the city. So they found the upper room, as it's called. It's over there. It was on 617 South New Jersey Street. So they got a hold of the guy that owned the building, and we went over there, and you had to walk up a steep, very steep. But anyway, we started having church there. Brother Toll Turner was there, and there was a Brother Smith there, and then Brother and Sister Holland come up from Kentucky, and their family, and Brother Homer, and then Brother Collett, and a lot of them. Wait a minute, I forgot. We went. When you get old, you forget some things. Brother Louis was the pastor, and Sister Hazel. And so we started having church there, and a lot of the Baker families was coming there, and Susie's mom and dad, and they were 7 siblings of you, and the Etta's mom and dad, and your Uncle Bill McFerrin, and the Carltons. There was quite a few of those on that side of the family. Anyway, I wish you could see that building, because right in the middle of it, there was a big, big furnace. And if you sat on this side, you could not see who sat on that side. It wasn't built for a church, I'll tell you that. And anyway, it was something. But anyway, God moved in miraculous ways. And back then, we really didn't start having church till 10 o'clock. We'd have church from 10 to 11, 12, 1 o'clock. And we was all of us kids were in school, but we didn't mind it. And Dad always got up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock every morning, but we never missed no services. And we'd have revivals 3 and 4 and 5 weeks at a time. And but God, their hunger is what took them through that. And we saw lots and lots of family. I think that's where Sister Etta's mom and dad was saved, and some of her uncles, and even her grandpa. She had the sweetest grandpa. We called him Grandpa McFerrin, and he would testify, and big tears would just roll down his face, and he was such a blessing. And so we were we were fortunate, but not knowing it at the time. You're young and you don't really know what you've got until you lose it. And so, but anyway, we had some great preachers come in there, and I remember Brother Lester Sampy when he came to town, we had revival. And Brother Claude Ely come in and had revival, and there was just a lot of the guys that come in, and we really had church over there. And Sister Hazel was always an inspiration. She taught us to have faith. She taught us to be strong, and she taught us to have faith like nothing else. She was a faith preacher. And I still remember the things that she taught that has helped me through my storms and through my hurricanes, because we've been through a lot of things. But God didn't promise us we were going to have a bed of roses. But he said he would be with us at all times. He never leaves us. We may go through the storm, but we know who controls the storm. And when we hold his hand, that's the strongest support that we could ever have. And so, anyway, we kind of outgrew the place, and so Brother Louis and some of the men in the church started looking for some land to build, because the man had told Brother Louis that Eli Lilly wants to buy this building. And so they started looking, and they found a place, 2700 South Tibbs, 5 acres. And we went over there and started in the basement. Brother Homer and Mitchell Baker and Matt Baker and a lot of them, I can still see them in them big gun boots, that's what they're called, down there in that concrete pouring that basement floor. And that's where we started, was in the basement over there. But there was a lot of people got saved. We had a tent revival over there, and there was a lot of people got saved there. And then we had a tent revival on Moore Street. That's where Brother Hobbs came into the picture. Him and Sister Katie, and they had little David then. He was just a little fella. They didn't have no vehicle, so they called a bus and came and got off there on Moore Street where we had the tent. And that's how we got acquainted with them. And they were with our group until, well, they're still, Sister Hobbs is still around. Brother Hobbs is not. But getting back to what we were trained to do, Sister Hazel was a woman of God. She really, when she would get ready to prophesy, it could be as noisy as could be, but in a split second, it was quiet as a mouse. And when she began to speak in tongues, and then she would start prophesying. And if she prophesied, you could tell. You could mark it down in your little book. It would come to pass. And a lot of things that she prophesied did come to pass. So after we were there for a while, then we, of course, I was telling you about on South Tibbs Avenue. We started having church there. And then there, when we had it in the basement, we always had a Saturday night deliverance service. And people would come in to be prayed for, to be delivered. And they put it in the paper, and we usually had a house full down there in that basement. And there was a lot of people that come in that had problems and needed help. And we really had a lot of problems with demons when we was Brother Allender. Now, Brother Allender could deal with them. He would say, "You mothers, take your children outside." he said, when these spirits come out, they go into somebody else. So he made the mothers to take the children out, which they do. When they do come out, they do go, the Bible tells us, they went into the swine. They got to go somewhere. So anyway, we had a lot of different people that come in that you really didn't know how to deal with. Some of them had come in. It really took God to give you some directions. But Sister Hazel always prayed, and she had a discerning, and she knew, seemed like, just how to do some things. And the people would come in, and lots of times they did get delivered and got set free, and they made great Christian people. But anyway, when we'd have the deliverance services, those were really great, great times. And then Sister Hazel always taught us, she said, now listen, she would teach us girls sometimes, she'd say, now, you need, if you got a problem on how you look or what you're doing, so ask yourself if Jesus would come and appear to you personally, how would you feel about that? And I thought, well, that always stuck with me, you know, and I to this day, I mean, that's there in my mind. So if I had a doubt with something, she said, if you got a doubt with something, just don't do it, period. Just leave it alone. And so, and she taught us faith, and she taught us to listen. And there was many times that she'd say, let's just not do nothing. Nobody do nothing. No music, no talking. Let's wait. And when that happened, God always come and spoke. And that is something that we always tried to build this work upon what she had taught us to do, to listen, because that's so important, because God, if he speaks, he knows your problems better than anybody else. You can study all day for a message, but when you get to church, God can change that in a split second. And there'll be people at church that needs to hear something else, and you need to be ready to change what you've got in your mind to preach, because you need to be instant in season and out of season. So you need to put your notes aside and say, Lord, whatever your will is, I'm willing to go and follow you. And that's what they were taught. They taught us to do that. And I'm so glad that they did. I mean, I wouldn't give anything for what the teaching. But anyway, getting back to the churches, some of the people wanted Dad to start a church. Some of the people that come up from Kentucky, well, they was running a good crowd over there when we left. There's way over 200 people at Brother Gibson's. And so he said, well, we could probably go back over to South New Jersey Street, because they hadn't done anything with it. So we went back over there, and Dad talked us into going. And I didn't want to leave, you know. I don't like changes too much. I wanted to stay there, you know. But anyway, we went, and so we started having churches there. And then I think Imogene's mom and her family come into the picture, and a lot of the people did. And then Brother Baker was there, and Brother Matt, and so they felt like going to New York Street and starting to work. So they left and went over there and started to work over there. And then the Lord really helped them, and they was able to reach people. It seemed like they just kind of scattered out. There were several churches from, I've got some water, but thank you.
Okay, well, you've got two now.
Thank you. But anyway, when Brother Baker and them started over there on, there was several people got saved over the neighborhood. And we always had good fellowship among us. And Brother Baker had church on Sunday afternoon about every weekend. And so we'd hurry and get through with our church and then be over there for their for the Sunday afternoon service. So, and then we got acquainted with Brother Echoes, and he was a great, and Dad's cousin went over there. And so we started visit. Back then, we was going to church somewhere every night. We hardly ever stayed home. And we just, you know, I know when our kids were little, I know they was just drug around there from church to church, but I don't regret that. Really, I don't. And because I think that's better than them being in some other places that they could have been in. And so when Brother Burkhart came up from Kentucky, he was told that there was a church over there close to the farmer's market. And they told him, they said, now if you get to the farmer's market and sit there with your window down, you'll hear the church. Well, he did, and he got acquainted with us, and we got, you know, and he was there for a while. And then he felt led to go down to Brown County and start a work. So there were several churches that branched off from the mother church, which was Charity Tabernacle. And but Brother Buddy Mullins, and there was another Gibson. He went out to Plainfield and started a church. There were several people that started from there. But then we went, going back to us, we was having church there, and then Lily's come up and said we had to be out there in a certain time. So we had no choice but to get out of the church, and we didn't have nowhere else to go. So we started having prayer meetings. Your mom and dad, you remember, we had prayer meetings there and prayer meetings anywhere we could have. And then Brother, Turner, he started a church. He left us and went and started church on Virginia Avenue. And so he started to work over there and was able to reach people in that area that nobody else could have reached. And so we had prayer meetings until we found Morgantown Road. So I remember Wayne calling me from work, and he said, we're going to meet at real estate at a certain place at a certain time. And I said, well, I can't go. I said, I'm painting the bathroom. He said, well, you'll have to put the paintbrush up or roller, whatever. He said, we got to meet them at 4 o'clock, I believe, or 5. Anyway, he said, your mom and dad's going to be there. And I said, well, okay, I'll do it. So I got the kids and got ready. And we went down there, and that's where we found Morgantown Road. And so when I first walked in, I thought, oh, Lord, this place is a mess. It had big ceilings, and it had wallpaper that hung way down. It just scooped down. And the carpet had holes in it. The pews were not bolted down. I told Wayne, I said, well, somebody will break their neck if they start shouting on this carpet, because it was terrible. Anyway, Dad thought, well, they wanted 20, was it 22 or 24? No, 12,000 for it. Dad said, well, Dad said, I think that's a little high. Now, my dad, he come through the Depression. He did not believe in spending money. He told us children we only needed 2 outfits, one to wear and the other to be washed. So Mother always went shopping, but she always come in the back door. She put the new stuff she'd bought in the wash machine, closed the lid on it, and Dad didn't know that she'd been out shopping because he didn't want no money spent. He said, Martha, if you had $1 million, you'd have it spent before the day was over. And Mom just was like that. Every weekend we had something new. That was a normal thing for us, and I didn't think nothing about it. But anyway, Dad said, I believe that's a little bit too much. And Wayne said, now, Papa, That's what he called him. He said, now, Papa, you ain't going to find nothing no cheaper than this. And he hum-hawed around and hum-hawed around, and he said finally, well, Geneva knows how they were raised and how they were. And he said, well, I guess, he said. That's about what he said. I said, I guess. So we bought it on contract. And we paid so much a month. And Wayne and I would always go on County Line Road. The elder that we went to, they were really nice. Robinson's was their last name, or Roberts one. And we would take them a check from the church for that month. And they were really precious people. The Christian church is the one that owned it and had been there for years and years. But then when we got in there, of course, Wayne had to start raising money because Dad would not let you buy nothing on credit. That was a total sin to him. And he thought you only need the bare necessities. And Wayne said, Papa, we got to get some new carpet in here. He said, these women's going to fall and break their neck if we don't do something with this carpet. So finally we raised enough money. We was always having to work. I mean, the women really had to work in both churches, this one in Morgantown Road. And so we was able to get the carpet, and then laminated lumber there in London made the pews. And these chairs right here went with a set of pews that we had down there. So Dad said, well, we don't need them chairs. And he wouldn't sit in them for a long time. Then when he got to sitting in them, he got comfortable, and he just went up there and sat most of the time in that chair. But anyway, now Dad was a good provider. I'm not saying that. I mean, he was a good provider. Now, he would help people if there was a need. He was really that kind of person. I remember when Brother Louis Gibson's sister and husband, Dave, and Mary went to Colorado, I think, and they took Sharon, Brother Louis' daughter, with them. And they had a bad accident, and Brother Louis' sister was decapitated in the wreck, and Sharon was really in bad shape. And Sister Hazel was just about ready to deliver Danny Gibson, so she couldn't go. So Brother Louis, he didn't have no money. Brother Louis had to pray, and Sister Hazel, their food in. There was a lot of hard-hearted people back then. I mean, they thought the pastor ought to live on nothing. They really did. They thought they did not have to have a dime. And they had to pray their food in. And God did provide it and send it in. But now God will bless those that brought it in. But anyway, getting back, Brother Louis was he was really worried because that was his daughter. And Sharon messed her leg up. She had one leg higher than the other, or lower or whatever. She had to wear a built-up shoe for years. Anyway, Dad took the money over and gave it to Brother Louis. He said, Brother Louis, I think it was $80-some. He said, here's the money for your plane ticket to go get Sharon. And so Brother Louis went out there and brought Sharon back, and then they finally got his sister back, and his brother-in-law took care of that. But anyway, there was a lot of heartaches in our groups, and in the groups that we started out with, there's probably nobody that I know that's still around. Maybe some of the grandchildren. Time went so fast for us, and you don't realize at the time how fast time is going. I know it might be getting late, but now I'm not a clock watcher, so if you got to go, you can go. It won't hurt my feelings. But the Lord always come in and helped us in whatever state we was in. But I appreciate the faith, and I appreciate them teaching us to listen for the voice of the Lord. And he's so precious. When he speaks, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. And they taught us, you discern. You discern, because that's what the Holy Ghost is for. And to know those that labor among you, and especially here, don't ever let nobody up here you don't know much about, and it would probably be good if you don't let some that you do know. I mean, I've had them come in here. One day I come in here early. We always come in early. And this guy sat up here, and Wayne went back to his office, and this guy started prophesying to me, and he hit it. And I said, I know who you are. The devil knows. And I thought, so I went back to Wayne. Wayne said, I already know. He said, I already know. So I said, I started to open my mouth and said, that guy up there, and he's I already know. He'd already discerned before he came in. And it was the first time I'd ever, he sat right there on that front pew. So I just walked up, I always shook hands with everybody. So I just walked up and shook hands with him. And so he started that, and I thought, I know who you're from. And so I appreciate that. That's kept me out of a lot of problems. And I do appreciate what I was taught. We were taught strict. We were taught you live it when you shout, you live it when you quit shouting. And we were taught love and compassion. And our churches were like a family. You're with those people more than you are your own family. So really, you need to have that special bond among you, among the churches. And I'm so glad that I miss our people so much. I told David one time, I said, David, you are blessed to know the cream of the crop. He said, I know that, Mom, I know that. And so I talked to him and I preached to him, and I don't mince words with him either. I do not condone sin. I know a lot of people condone sin, but when it comes to their family, it's different. And we shouldn't treat our family any different than your family. It all should be the same. And that's the way I've tried to do with my children. I don't condone anything that they do that's wrong, and they know that. And because I'm going to stand before God one of these days, and I don't want blood on my hands. And I always worried about when Wayne was the pastor here. I thought, Lord, help us, because I don't want us to stand before you and have blood dripping from our hands. Because when this is the most scary position, because you're going to give account for everybody that sits under your voice. I'm going to give account for what I'm saying today. And I'm hoping that I'm saying it right. I know I'm getting older, and there's a lot of things that I could say that I have probably forgotten. But it needs to be told, and you need to tell your children what God has done for you in your life and your family. And you really need to tell them about your heritage. I wish my dad was back here. We came from, his grandfather and his great-grandfather came from Ireland. And they're buried in Virginia. Well, I'd like to go to Ireland. I'd like to meet some of my relatives and see what they are, how they are. And I know Ireland is a wicked place. But the Lord had reasons for Patrick Sr. and Patrick Jr. Carnahan to move over here to the United States because Grandpa was a great person. He went to every house, and I've told this before, he went to every house in our little town, and he told everyone about Jesus. He wasn't afraid to tell people about Jesus. He lived it. He didn't get to go to church much because he never owned a vehicle in his life. Now, you could give him a horse, he knew how to work on horses because he was taught from the Confederate soldiers how to work with the horses. He knew how to do with that. But anyway, Grandma and Grandpa was a great light to me. And I know I was really close to my grandpa. And I'm glad that Wayne met him just before we married. And but anyway, a lot of the churches sprung out, like I said, and were able to reach lots and lots of people. And I remember one Sunday they had an all-day service in Brown County, and Sister Hazel got up and she said, "I'm tired of coming down here and looking at this dirt floor." She said, "Before we leave here today, we're going to take up enough money to get this floor poured, concrete." And so when they took it up, right? They took up an offering, and they put a concrete floor in there. It was dirt floor. And now down at Shelby, down at Morgantown Road, when you walked in there, the pulpit was way out there was a wall there, and the baptistry was behind that wall. If some of you may not know that, I don't know. But Wayne had some remodeling done and moved that wall out. First, I think, I better get to this. This is funny. But the bathrooms were up. You go up on the platform and open the door and go in behind that wall, and that's where the bathrooms was. Well, it was always like a bunch of little ants running up and down, up and down, up and down, and it was hard to have church because there was so many, you remember, Ed, so many young children, and they were really noisy, and they'd slam that door, so that Wayne said, "We're going to have to do something about that." And so he figured out a way to put the bathrooms up by the stairs, and we took down the doors that they had were probably, 12 feet high when you came into the sanctuary. They took those down and put a wall there and lowered them, put smaller doors. But anyway, he took them bathrooms out of that to where they wouldn't have to go up on the platform, and that sure did help a whole lot. And put them back there as you come into the front door there. But there was a lot of work done down there. We put that extension on the back of the church there. And Wayne always wanted to get the parking lot paved, but Dad said, "No, it's all right, it's all right." So we never did get that done. But, and we could have got it done really cheap because Fleetwood knew Wayne real well because he'd done a lot of work up there where he worked at. And he would have put it in really reasonable. And he done work for us, and we didn't pay him for 2 or 3 years. He'd say, "Just pay me when you can." And same way when we got our carpet, the carpet guy, Wayne talked to him on the phone because he was working in the trucking company. So Mr. Langlois, I believe was his name, he said, "Just pay me when you can." So that's what we did. And I think it took us a year or so to pay for the carpet. And then, but here is, when you walk in these doors here, you're really walking into a miracle. I told you maybe yesterday morning, we had our concrete block, got those for 10 cents a piece, and the metal doors were $6 a piece. And that's when they first started coming out with the metal doors, and everybody was wanting those metal doors because they were more insulated and more safer than a wood door. So brother in Connorsville had some, and so he told Wayne he'd sell them for $6 a piece, so we got those. And then George Jr.'s dad poured the foundation back there. And I'd say within a year after we moved here, we was up to 129 people. We started out with a small group, but there was whole families that come in and got saved. We didn't want to build a church and take away from nobody else's. And so really everybody was supposed to come over here. They had a business meeting. Every time they had a business meeting, somebody wrote down the minutes. So there is record of that. They all agreed to come, but then there's 2 or 3 that didn't want to come. So Dad felt like he needed to stay there to help them. So anyway, they did. That's what happened. But anyway, the Lord, there was a couple of preachers called Wayne and said, I wouldn't build in this time for nothing else. The first time we started that building back there was when they had the fuel embargo. We went from 29 cents, 19 cents or 29 cents. I remember when it was 19 cents, up to way, I don't know, 79 cents. And these preachers said, boy, I wouldn't build no church at this time. He said, I don't know. So I don't know how you're going to do it. And Wayne kept telling me, he said, I really feel like the Lord's telling me to build. So he kept saying that, and I said, now, Wayne, you know the voice of God, and whatever God tells you to do, you do it, because he'll make a way. And so he started building. I stood by him. I didn't say no. I got worried and scared because we were responsible. And but anyway, it was really, the Lord really helped me. One night, I was painting again in the other bathroom, and the Lord spoke to me, said, go over to Brother Baker's tonight. Brother Baker had Brother Banks over there. It was his Thanksgiving. He always had a deal, Thanksgiving, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I think it's on a Friday when, so I said, Lord, I'm busy. I don't have time to go. And it kept impressing me, go, go, go. So I thought, well, I'll go. So Brother Banks preached to me that night. So about trusting God and how that he would open doors and he would move for you and he'd be there when you needed him. And so everything he preached was, I felt like, to Carol Grace. So I went home and I thought, now, Lord, after church, T.J. Baker come to me. He said, well, what do you think now? And I looked up at him and I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the Lord talked to you tonight. I said, you think so? He said, yeah, I know so. I said, well, yeah, he did. He talked to me. And so, anyway, I think I told Wayne, he was working nights then. And so I said, if you really feel like it's time for you to build, I said, go ahead. And the Lord had given me a dream one night and showed me we were in a hog lot, and there was a man that had boots on. He was in slopping hogs. That's just plain English. But he said, I'm looking for a Wayne Grace. And I said, well, he's over there. He said, I've got some money I want to give him. And so when I woke up, that dream troubled me all day long. I thought, now, Lord, are you speaking to me? And I knew he was. I didn't have to ask him because I knew he was. He was trying to, he was working on me. Wayne didn't seem to have no trouble with it. I'm sure he wrestled with it because he didn't want to. But anyway, and another thing I need to tell you, long time ago down at Morgantown Road, we had a minister that was there from Texas as a lady minister. And she came back to me and she started prophesying to me. And when she started prophesying to me, I felt that she was real. But some of the things she told me, I didn't understand. She said, you're going to see a lighthouse built, and said you're going to see great pillars in it, and said you're going to see many souls saved, and said it's not going to grow as fast as you'd like, but said it will grow slow and be a strong foundation, and said it's going to be a lighthouse to this city. And I thought, well, I don't understand that, Lord. And I've always known when people prophesy, it doesn't come to pass right now. If you study the Old Testament, there was prophecies that didn't come forth for years later down the road that it came to pass. And I said, now, Lord, I don't understand that. I really don't. But I don't understand the meaning of it. But I said, I'm just going to leave it alone. So I did. And so whenever we got this building, or maybe it was the other building, I don't remember. Wayne said, we gotta charter the church, and we got to come up with a name. And it was really funny, that prophecy come to me just like that. I said it would be a lighthouse. I said, well, remember that prophecy I got? I said, I'd forgot about it. And he said, yeah. I said, what about Pentecostal Lighthouse? Well, he went downtown, and they said, no, you can't name it that, because Brother Topman's church on north side, his church was called Pentecostal Lighthouse. Said we can't have two churches named same in the city. So he came back to me, and I said, that prophecy said Shelby Street, or Pentecostal Lighthouse. So we discussed it, and we thought about Shelby Street Pentecostal Lighthouse. So when he went down there, they said, yeah, that would be fine. So that's how the name came about. And the Glorious Church of God, the name that come about there was from Sister Lucy. When we started the church on King Avenue, she felt like that they should have named that church Glorious Church of God. So Dad always had confidence in Sister Lucy, and I did too. She was a good woman. And so when we started the church in the upper room, that's what he called the church. He said, we'll call it what Sister Lucy wanted the other church named, the Glorious Church of God. So that's where that name came from. So I know I haven't touched everything. We'd be here all evening. But I do know that God has moved in our city, and we've had some great churches in our city, and we've had some great moves of God in our city. And I really do miss Brother Leon Baker, because he was the one, him and Wayne was always together making plans to have fellowship meetings here and there, and they really worked on that. They promoted fellowship because we need each other. You're not separated. I don't think when we get to heaven, we're not going to be separated. There's not going to be a little group here and a little group there. And, trying to promote, your little fellowship over somebody else's fellowship. I don't know. But anyway, churches need to pull together, more so in this day and age, because they are trying to tear down what I'm telling you today about our heritage. They're trying to tear down our heritage. And I know slavery it wasn't a good thing, but look what they did to our Savior. They crucified him. I know they're trying to get everybody to take down their crosses, but they can't take it out of here. And that's why you need it planted in there, and you need the word planted in there, because when you go through hard things, I'll tell you one thing, when we lost our daughter, that was our Rockadan storm. But you know what? I didn't think of no songs. It was the Word of God that brought me through that. And I could hear Sister Hazel she was healed of TB. She was in a sanatorium for, I don't know, she had 2 girls at that time. And she said, Lord, if you will heal me and let me get out here, she said, I'll preach your word. And she wasn't brought up in Pentecost. We called them holiness back there. We didn't. It wasn't Pentecost. It was holiness. And so she finally, the Lord healed her of TB. And she could not touch her 2 little girls, Joyce, June and Joyce. And because she, TB was, back then was very contagious. And because it hit our home, and I knew about it. And but anyway, when she got out, I think she got out hitting the ground running, because she wanted to make up for what God had done for her. And she never did forget to tell people what God had done for her healing. And she had 7 children altogether, but she only had the 2 when she had the TB. But God done a miracle for her. And back in the 50s, which was the best time to live, I'll tell you that one thing. That was the best time to live. Brother Estel, you agree with me? It was the best time. That's when a lot of the faith preachers come in, and they preach faith. And I really appreciate that. And I know Billy Graham, or not Billy Graham, but I can't think of his name now. William Branham. When he walked out on the platform, he said, I don't heal. He said, God does. He said, it's your faith that heals. And we have forgot to portray that to our people. We think it's personalities. It's not personality. We need to get rid of personalities, because Christ needs to be the most centered thing in our life, because he's the only one that can do it. He's the only one that knows what goes through your mind. I don't know what goes through your mind, and nobody else here does. But Jesus does. He knows your needs. I don't. The Lord may reveal to me. Sometimes he does, but not always. But he does always know your needs. And so we need to get back to that place that we're listening. Lord, what should I do for the people that's here tonight? There may be strangers that walk in the door that's never known or heard nothing. It would be like you and I going into I've never been into a Catholic church, but if I went into a Catholic church, I would not know what to expect. And there's people walks in our doors, they don't know what to expect when they walk into our doors. And they're not going to know what we know. And by us telling them things that we know, they don't understand that. They've got to be taught. It's just like your little grandbabies and your great-grandbabies. They may be 1 year old, but they don't know what you know. Now, I know quite a bit because I've been saved so many years. Some of you have not been saved that long, and so the Lord's probably going to require more out of me than he might somebody that's just been saved. And I want to be careful. I want to make it. I do not want to live up till now and be lost. And I really, really ask the Lord to help me with my mind and my heart. I know our bodies gets weak and tired, but what lives in here doesn't, And I know we've lost a lot of good people, and they've gone on to their reward. But we haven't made it yet, but we need to be ready. And I'm glad for everybody that come here. That shows me that you're interested, not because I'm speaking, and I'll tell you that. It's because you're interested in the future. And one of these days, all of us will be gone if time goes. I think the Lord will come back, but I've thought that for 30-some years. He hasn't yet. But he's going to have somebody, as long as there's people here, to tell other people what God has done. And you need to be telling. You need to be telling. You need to be testifying, because years ago people testified of what God done for them, their healing. We don't hear that no more. So that don't give nobody faith. Hey, if he done that for you, he'll do it for me. You know, and I've been blessed and went through situations, and I said, now, Lord, you're no respecter of person, because you've done it for them, you'll do it for me. And so that has helped me. But if they'd kept their seat and not told it, I couldn't realize that God could do that. I'd think, well, you know, he just don't do things like that. But God is the same yesterday, today, forever. He said he would never leave us, even when we go through the shadow of death. He'll always be there. And we can depend on him. And you younger girls, I appreciate you being here. You need to pass it on down to your children. And if you have problems with how you should look or do, say, now, Lord, if you stand here and look at me, how would I feel? That always helped me. It really did. I know the Lord looks at us, but what if he was standing there in body and looking at you? What would you think? And that always helped me, you know, and I'm glad I was taught that at an early age. And I appreciate all of them that's come, and I'm glad Beth and William come. Beth's one of our girls. We practically raised her, and I hope we've done a good job with her. I told Wayne the other day, I said, you raised so many kids, it's unreal. They'll come back. Oh, he's always loved children, always wanted a big family, but he does have a big family. He's raised a lot of kids. But, you know, in the church, and a lot of them's made pastors' wives, and I appreciate that. But let's don't forget our heritage, and be thankful for what God has done. Because if time does go on, your children will need to take it on after you're dead and gone. Because most of my family's gone. I have hardly any. I don't have no uncles or aunts. My grandparents are all gone. But I'm still here. But, you know, I'm not going to be here that much longer, you know. So that's the reason I'm trying to tell you today, warn you, please don't forget what God has done for you, where you've come from, and pass it down and live for the Lord. Be ready when he calls, because he's going to call one of these days. We don't know when. And like Brother Bennett the other day was just sitting there drinking coffee. Sister Bennett went in and put some clothes in the washer and came back, and he was laying there on the floor, was gone. So that's how fast you can leave. So I'll not take much more of your time. I could talk probably a couple more hours, but anyway, I brought this hanky this morning. Wayne said, what, you going to take your hanky? I said, oh, yeah, I better take my hanky. Sister Hazel, we used to have wave offerings. Remember that? We'd have wave offerings. Everybody take your hanky out and let's wave to the Lord. And it was really amazing. I've seen the Lord just come by with his spirit, because, you know, the Lord honors anything we do. Thank you, Brother Burkett. But anyway, I do appreciate you, and I hope I haven't bored you. And like I said, I could talk a couple more hours, but I better not. So anyway, let's all get ready and go, because I don't think it's long. And we really need to pray for Trump. I feel like I know he don't maybe suit what we think, but let's pray for him, because the devil would like to take him out. And I really don't know what would happen to our country if something like that did happen. It would affect us, our children. I'm not too worried much about myself, but it's my children and my little babies, my great-grandbabies. They don't know. If they had stayed where they should have, they would have known. but they strayed away. And I don't condone that. But it's in God's hands. And it's important. It's very important. Our lives are important to somebody. Somebody's watching you, whether you know it or not. I mean, especially when you get older, we go places and they'll say, well, hello, Brother and Sister Grace. And after they get leave, Wayne said, who was that? And I said, I don't know. I think, who was that? You know, but somebody's watching you, you know, and you're not seeing it, so you better walk straight. Because if you don't, you know, somebody's going to say, uh-oh, I saw Brother Grace, Sister Grace slip up and do this or that. So now I don't watch what I do when I go out because I don't have no problem with that. I don't have no desire for what is going on around me. And I don't want you to know that I talk to the devil. I talk to the Lord, but I talk to the devil. You know, he's going to, when they put him in hell, they're going to look upon him and they're going to say, is this the one? This is what I really felt like speaking on. But I thought, well, I know the history is important. But I want you to know when Satan is put in hell, they're going to look at him and say, is this the one that caused the nations to tremble? And they're going to narrowly look upon him and not believe that he was the one that done that. He's not as big as you think. Lots of times we give the devil a lot of credit when it's our choice. Our choice. I got a choice. I could go out here and do whatever I want to if I had a choice to do so. I don't have no choice to do that. And the devil, you know, I don't have no desire to do that. And so lots of times we give him more credit. And the Bible says for us to rebuke him. And that's why a lot of people, they don't realize you need to stand up and square your shoulders back. Say, I'm a child of the King. You just get away and leave me alone. Because he'll torment you with a lot of things. He will torment you to death if you'll let him. But now, you got a choice. You can sit where you're at. Like when the leopards, they said, we could stay here and die. But the city was dying. It was hedged in. They had them, the army had them hedged in. Well, they went into the city and told them, said, the army has fled, and there was all kinds of goods out there to eat. They were eating their own children in there, in that city. So they didn't believe them, but they came out. When they came out, they seen that the enemy had got scared and run away and left all their stuff behind. So the city had everything they left behind. So God has got a way in the wilderness whether we believe it or not. And so start talking to the devil. Rebuke him because he does not have the authority over you like you think he does. When you're a child of God, there's blood there. The blood's been applied, and he can't cross that bloodline. That's off his limits. Do you understand what I'm saying? You just say, now, devil, there's a line there, and you're not crossing it. And be strong in what you believe in. And he'll take you through. I know he will, because I'm here as an example that God will take you through. Now, I'm not saying I want to have something hit me tomorrow, but if it does, I know who holds tomorrow. And the Bible says it rains on the just and the unjust alike. When Eve, I'll say this and sit down. When Eve was in the garden, the devil kept coming around her and talking to her. Now, I find her at fault. She ought to had more sense than what she did, I think. I hate to say that, but anyway. The devil said, if you eat of that tree of knowledge, you'll be as gods. I thought, boy, that's in the 3rd chapter of Genesis, gods. And now we've got thousands of gods. And that's where it come from. In the garden. He said, you be as gods. And I thought, well, and I thought she ate of that fruit and then give it to Adam. I don't believe Adam was deceived. I believe he knew what she was doing. But I thought, boy, she has caused us a lot of trouble. If she'd only left that crazy Satan alone and stayed by Adam, she might have, things may be different today. I don't know. But anyway, I'm just telling you that you just got to be careful with the devil. Take authority over him. Jesus used the word. He said it's written. He tried to get Jesus to bow down and worship him. Can you believe he's got that much gall to do that? But he did. And Jesus said, it is written that man shall not live by bread alone. So anyway, I better shut up. Thank you for listening.